There's an argument in tennis that never actually ends.
Is Novak Djokovic the best ever?
Whose peak was the highest anyone has ever played? People point to Federer floating across grass like the sport owed him a favor. They point to Nadal in 2010, dragging 3 different surfaces behind him in a single season, and they'll go back and forth on it forever. But there's a window of time that somehow gets talked about quietly. A stretch where one man beat both of those legends. Not once, not on a lucky afternoon, over and over in finals, on every surface there is. And he made it look like the most boring thing in the world. So today we're doing something very specific. We're not asking whether Novak Djokovic is the greatest of all time. That's a whole other video. We're asking the narrower, harder question. At his absolute peak, how good was this man actually? And is it possible we've quietly been underrating the answer this entire time? To understand the peak, you have to understand what came right before it. Because Djokovic's prime isn't really a story about talent, it's a story about a transformation. Rewind to the late 2000s. Djokovic was clearly the third man, gifted, quick, obviously good enough to win a big title here and there. But there was a ceiling on him, and everyone could see exactly where it was. His body kept betraying him. In the long matches, the ones that got dragged into the 4th and 5th hour, he was the one who wilted. He'd struggle to breathe. He'd start pulling at his shirt. Sometimes he'd just stop, walk to the net and retire, unable to finish what he'd started. That was the label: enormous ability, unreliable engine. A player who could take a set off anybody and then hand the match back the moment it got physical. And then somewhere around the end of 2010, that player disappears. He rebuilds the whole machine: how he moves, how he recovers, what he puts in his body, how he holds himself when the match tips into hour 4. The guy who used to quit in the 5th set becomes the guy who never loses the 5th set. Same name, completely different person. Nobody knew what they were about to walk into. 2011. This is the year it detonates. Djokovic starts the season and simply refuses to lose. He wins his first 41 matches on the trot. 41-0. Let that sit for a second. An entire half a season without a single defeat against the best field the sport has ever assembled. And it's who he's beating that makes it absurd. That year, every time he runs into Nadal in a final, he wins. Every single time. 6 finals, 6 losses for one of the toughest competitors in history. He takes 3 of the 4 majors. He takes the world #1 ranking. And he does it without ever looking rushed, without ever looking like he's playing above himself. He looks like a man who solved the game and got a little bored waiting for everyone else to catch up. From here, the wall only gets thicker. 2012. Australia. The final that people still talk about in hushed voices. Djokovic and Nadal go at each other for nearly 6 hours. The longest major final the sport has ever produced. 2 men refusing to break. And at the very end of it, after the point of exhaustion, after the point where both should have collapsed, it's Djokovic still standing, still tracking down balls that had no business coming back, still hitting the line when his legs should have been gone. That match tells you everything about what his prime actually was. It was never really about power. It was about the fact that the point you thought was over wasn't. Because here's what made him so uniquely miserable to play. He turned the biggest weapon in the whole sport, the serve, into a liability. His return didn't just get the ball back, it punished you for serving well. You'd nail a first serve into the corner. The shot that ends, points against everyone else on earth, and it would come back deeper and harder than what you sent. He was elastic in a way the game had never seen. He'd do the splits at full stretch, absorb your best shot, and reset the rally like nothing happened. He didn't overpower opponents, he dissolved them. He took away the one thing every player needs, which is the belief that a good shot means anything. Against prime Djokovic, your best wasn't enough. And after an hour of that, guys stopped believing it ever would be. You could see the exact moment their shoulders dropped. 2015. Now we get to the season a lot of people will argue is the single greatest year anyone has ever put together. He reaches the final of all 4 majors. Everyone. He wins 3 of them and loses the 4th to a man playing the match of his life. He finishes the year with something like 82 wins and a handful of losses. He beats everybody, everywhere, on everything. There's no surface where he's vulnerable, no opponent who has a plan that survives contact. So there's your real debate. Was the peak that 41-0 explosion in 2011? Or was it the total 4-surface suffocation of 2015? Honestly, you can make either case, and both cases are terrifying. But the answer to how high did it actually go comes right after. 2016. Paris. Djokovic wins the French Open, the one title that had haunted him, the one clay crown that kept slipping away, and in doing it, he pulls off something almost nobody in the history of the sport has ever managed. He holds all 4 major titles at the same time: Australia, France, Wimbledon, the US Open, all of them at once in his possession. The last man to do that did it in 1969. That's the company we're talking about, not one of the best of his generation. Something closer to a category error. A player standing in a place the record books had basically closed off decades earlier. That is the summit. That's the moment where the question, how good was prime Djokovic actually, has a genuinely uncomfortable answer. Because on the resume of peak levels ever reached, holding all 4 is not a talking point you can argue around. And then, almost immediately, the untouchable version starts to fade. The second half of 2016 gets strange. At Wimbledon of all places, he goes out early to a player nobody expected, a result that would have been unthinkable 6 months before. The aura cracks. The results wobble. The following season, the body finally sends its bill, an injury that shuts his year down early. Now, does that mean he was finished? Obviously not. This man had entire second and third acts still coming. More titles, more history, years of brilliance ahead. But the specific version we're talking about today, the one that made 2 all-time legends look ordinary on the same afternoon, the one that held every major at once and yawned, I'd argue that version had its last full breath right there in the summer of 2016. So let's actually answer the question we started with. Across roughly 5 years, this man won the biggest tournaments on the planet at a rate that shouldn't be possible, beat the 2 greatest players who ever lived whenever it mattered most, and held all 4 majors simultaneously for the first time in almost half a century. He didn't just win. He removed hope from the other side of the net. So was prime Djokovic the highest level tennis has ever seen? I think it's a lot closer than the internet wants to admit. And I think, for a while there, nobody on the planet was even in the conversation with him. But I want to hear it from you. Prime Djokovic, prime Federer, prime Nadal, put them all on the same court on their best day, and who actually walks off the winner? Drop it in the comments, be honest. I have a feeling it's going to get interesting down there, and if you enjoyed this, a like genuinely helps the channel more than you'd think. Subscribe for more tennis deep dives like this one, and I'll see you in the next video.